The morning sky above the Galactic Combat Academy burned with the light of 3 suns. Inside the great silver hall, hundreds of alien cadets gathered for what was known as the Trial of Intelligence. It was said that this test had a 99% failure rate, and only legends ever survived it. The atmosphere was heavy, every whisper filled with tension, and every step echoed like thunder. The alien instructor, Commander Varek, stood at the front, his metallic armor shining under the lights. He was tall, cold, and proud, a veteran of 10 wars, known for breaking cadets before they could even dream of success. He looked at the gathered students with his piercing yellow eyes and spoke in a voice that made even the bravest tremble. "Welcome, cadets. Today you face the test that defines greatness. Failure is not shameful, but only one of you may succeed." Rows of alien students stood straight, their colorful skin and glowing eyes showing species from across the galaxy. The Zelari, known for their telepathic focus, the Cranics, whose minds could calculate light-speed equations, and the Valorians, famous for logic and emotionless thought. Every species here believed they were the smartest in the galaxy. And then, the last name echoed through the hall. Cadet Ryan Hale. Human. A few aliens turned, confused. Some laughed quietly, their mouths curling into strange grins. A human? In the Galactic Academy? Humans were considered emotional, unstable, slow, and weak. No human had ever passed the trial of intelligence. Ryan stepped forward calmly, wearing the same gray cadet uniform as everyone else. He looked ordinary, short brown hair, calm eyes, a quiet expression. But his presence carried something different, a kind of quiet confidence that didn't match his fragile frame. He walked to his seat, ignoring the whispers. Commander Varek noticed him, his sharp eyes narrowing. "A human, interesting," he muttered under his breath. The instructor turned and pressed his claw against the glowing console. At once, hundreds of floating cubes appeared before each cadet, glowing with blue and red lights. Each cube contained thousands of alien symbols and shifting equations, puzzles that tested memory, speed, and creativity beyond logic. The test began. Alien cadets focused intensely, their minds linked with the cubes through telepathic waves. Some groaned under pressure, others twitched as data flooded their brains. Ryan simply watched his cube spin slowly, studying its light. To him, it looked almost like a Rubik's Cube from Earth, only alive. He smiled a little, and then began to work. Minutes passed. The hall was filled with the hum of mental energy. One by one, alien cadets began to shake their heads, frustrated. Commander Varek walked slowly between the rows, his boots clicking against the steel floor. He smirked each time another student failed. But when he reached the human's desk, he stopped. Ryan's cube was glowing in patterns Varek had never seen. The human's hands moved quickly but calmly, his eyes scanning each symbol like he was reading a book. His fingers tapped gently on the holographic surface, and suddenly the cube shifted colors, from red to green. A soft chime echoed through the hall. It was the signal for completion. Everyone froze. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human cadet. The cube floated above Ryan's desk, glowing bright green, the universal sign for success. Commander Varek stared in disbelief. It had been less than 5 minutes since the test began. Varek walked up to him slowly, his armor creaking. His voice came out sharp and cold. "How did you do that?" Ryan looked up, calm and polite. "I just found the pattern," he said softly. The instructor's hand twitched, his eyes narrowing as silence filled the room. The other cadets whispered, unable to believe what they had seen. A species once mocked for weakness had done what the strongest minds in the galaxy could not. Commander Varek turned toward the class, his voice low but shaking. "Test complete," he said. "And for the first time in history, a human has passed." Gasps filled the air. The silence that followed felt almost sacred. Ryan sat quietly, not proud, not arrogant, just peaceful. He didn't know it yet, but this moment would change the galaxy forever. The hall remained silent even after the test ended. Every alien cadet stared at the glowing cube above Ryan's desk, its green light reflecting disbelief in their eyes. The humans sat still, calm as a quiet sea, while whispers rippled through the room like electric waves. Commander Varek's sharp gaze followed him, the corners of his metallic mouth tightening with restrained anger. A human had just broken his record, something even the elite species had failed to do for centuries. When the cadets were dismissed, the silence turned into chaos. Groups of aliens gathered in corners, muttering among themselves. "He cheated," said a Zelari cadet, her telepathic voice echoing in the minds around her. "No human can process equations like that," replied a Kranix warrior, his heavy armor clanking as he crossed his arms. Others nodded, their disbelief turning into mockery. The word human spread through the academy halls like a virus, not in respect, but in ridicule. Ryan walked quietly down the shining corridor, his boots tapping softly against the metal floor. He could hear them laughing behind his back, their voices layered with sarcasm. Maybe his primitive brain glitched into the right answer, one sneered. Or maybe humans guessed their way through life, another added with a cruel chuckle. Ryan didn't respond, he kept walking. He had faced worse back home. Doubt, judgment, and underestimation were nothing new to him. But Commander Varek couldn't let go of what he had seen. He stormed into his office and replayed the test data over and over. The holographic display showed every move Ryan made, every symbol he touched, every shift in pattern. No sign of external help, no irregular brainwave, nothing. Varek growled softly, his claws tapping the desk. "This shouldn't be possible," he muttered. "A human mind cannot function at this level." The next day, Ryan arrived for combat drills. The training yard was surrounded by alien cadets, all watching as he stepped onto the platform. Varek stood beside him, arms crossed, his voice loud and sharp. "Yesterday, the human cadet did something unexpected," he said. "Today, we test if it was luck or skill." Ryan looked around, dozens of alien eyes watching him with open hostility. The commander activated the tactical simulator, a holographic battlefield made of glowing light. The task, to survive for 5 minutes against 10 alien opponents. The simulation started, and alien figures rushed toward him. Ryan moved differently, not faster, not stronger, but smarter. He ducked under energy blasts, using terrain to cover his movement. He turned defense into offense, using every mistake his opponents made. Within minutes, he deactivated all 10 enemies, one by one. When the simulation ended, the arena fell silent again. The result flashed on the giant screen, 100% completion, time, for minutes, 37 seconds. The crowd erupted with noise, some cheering, most shouting. "It's a trick," one yelled. "He's using hidden tech. Humans are unpredictable, that's all," another said, trying to make sense of it. Commander Varek looked at him again, silent and thoughtful this time. For the first time in years, he felt something unusual, curiosity. He approached Ryan slowly, his heavy steps echoing across the arena. "Tell me, Cadet Hale," Varek said quietly, "how do you do it?" Ryan met his gaze, calm but firm. "You teach everyone to follow rules," he said. "But humans survive by breaking them when we must." Varek frowned, not in anger, but in thought. The human's words struck him in a way he didn't expect. Behind the arrogance and pride of alien superiority, he saw something raw, something true. Humans were different, not better, but something the galaxy didn't understand yet. As Ryan walked away, the other cadets continued whispering. Some mocked, some doubted, but a few began to wonder. Maybe the human wasn't lucky. Maybe he was just seeing the world in a way no one else could. In the shadows of the Academy's grand halls, rumors began to spread that the weakest species in the galaxy had just awakened something unstoppable. And for the first time, even Commander Varek felt it. The uneasy realization that the galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. Days passed, yet the whispers about the human cadet refused to die. Every corridor of the Galactic Combat Academy buzzed with talk about the test, the simulation, and the impossible results. For most alien cadets, it was easier to mock than to accept. But for the instructors and higher officers, it was something more. It was fear disguised as disbelief. Commander Varek sat alone in his office, watching the test recordings again. Ryan Hale's calm eyes and confident movements haunted his thoughts. The commander had trained hundreds of alien warriors, each bred for mental and physical perfection. Yet none had ever shown such precision mixed with unpredictability. Every time Varek slowed the recording, he saw something strange. The human paused before each move, thinking like a predator, not a machine. It wasn't luck, it was instinct, raw and ancient, something no simulation could measure. Outside, Ryan continued his daily drills. He arrived early, trained longer, and spoke little. Some cadets avoided him, some whispered when he passed. But a few, quietly, began to follow his example. They watched how he studied, how he thought, how he fought. For the first time in Academy history, a human had become a silent influence among alien elites. One afternoon, a new challenge appeared on the Academy's holoboard, the Quantum Maze. A virtual labyrinth designed to test mental speed and strategic adaptability. No one had ever completed it alone. The record was 30% completion by a Zelare prodigy. When Ryan's name appeared on the list of volunteers, the Academy halls filled again with laughter. He's going to embarrass himself, someone said. Maybe humans like failing in public, another mocked. Commander Varek oversaw the event personally. He wanted to understand, to witness whether this human was truly exceptional or just a coincidence of fate. The crowd gathered in the grand observation dome, blue lights flickering across the floor. Ryan stepped into the maze chamber, calm as always. Sensors wrapped around his temples, linking his mind to the simulation grid. Varek's voice echoed through the speakers. Begin. The maze erupted in light, shifting walls of energy and traps of pure logic forming around him. Ryan moved quickly, but not recklessly. He didn't chase perfection. He adapted, adjusted, improvised. Where alien minds relied on patterns, the human mind thrived in chaos. He laughed softly when a wall reconfigured, using the distraction to slip through another route. To him, it wasn't a test, it was a puzzle, and puzzles were meant to be solved. Minutes turned into gasps from the audience. Ryan reached 50% completion, then 60, then 70. Varek leaned forward, his claws tapping the console unconsciously. No cadet had ever made it this far. At 90%, alarms blared, the system flickered, unable to process his unpredictable moves. The maze collapsed into static light as the simulation froze. The score flashed on the giant screen, 100% completed. The dome went silent again. Even the mocking voices were gone, replaced by stunned silence and disbelief. Ryan removed the headset slowly, breathing steady, eyes calm. He looked around and said quietly, "I think it was simpler than it looked." Commander Varek stood frozen, his voice caught in his throat. He had no words. The alien officers in the upper balconies exchanged glances, some recording, others already sending data to their homeworlds. The Academy had just witnessed the impossible. Again, when Ryan walked out of the chamber, the cadets stepped aside without being told. Their faces were filled with something new, not fear, not mockery, but silent respect mixed with confusion. In a single week, a human had done what centuries of alien training could not. He had broken logic, shattered limits, and rewritten expectations. Commander Varek finally spoke, his voice quieter than ever before. "Cadet Hale," he said, "you've done what the galaxy thought impossible." Ryan turned and gave a small smile. "Maybe the galaxy needs to think differently," he said. That night, as the twin moons rose above the Academy, the message spread across communication networks. A human had beaten every test in the Galactic Combat Academy. For the first time in galactic history, alien worlds were talking not about their superiority, but about a single human name, Ryan Hale. And somewhere deep inside, Commander Varek knew this was only the beginning. Because the galaxy had just realized that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't strength or technology. It was the way they refused to think like anyone else. The next morning, the Academy alarm rang earlier than usual. Cadets rushed into formation, but something felt different, tense, uneasy. Holoscreens flickered across the halls, all showing the same announcement. Cadet Ryan Hale, summoned to the council chamber for questioning. The message spread like fire, and soon the entire Academy whispered in shock. Ryan walked calmly through the corridor, his uniform crisp, his expression calm. Behind him, alien cadets watched in silence, some curious, some jealous, some secretly afraid. He entered the massive council chamber, a room filled with light and power. 12 alien counselors sat in a half-circle, each representing a dominant galactic species. Their faces glowed with pride, suspicion, and something else, fear of the unknown. Commander Varek stood to the side, silent, and unreadable. He had been ordered not to speak unless asked. Ryan stepped into the circle of light at the center, where no shadows could hide. One of the counselors, a tall Zelari woman with silver skin, spoke first. "Cadet Hale, do you understand why you have been called here?" Ryan nodded slowly. "Because I broke your records," he said quietly. A few counselors exchanged glances, uncomfortable at his direct tone. The eldest among them, a reptilian being with glowing orange eyes, leaned forward. "You did not just break them, human," he hissed softly. "You destroyed them." He pressed a button on the console, and holograms appeared, recordings of Ryan's tests, his combat drills, his maze simulation. The images floated around him like ghosts of his achievements. "This level of precision cannot be natural," the elder continued. "Tell us, how did you cheat?" Ryan looked up, his calm eyes steady. "I didn't cheat," he said. "I just thought differently." The room filled with murmurs, the counselors whispering to each other in disbelief. The Zelari counselor raised her hand, silencing them. "You expect us to believe that a human, a species barely out of its own atmosphere, surpassed millennia of evolved intelligence?" Ryan took a breath. "I didn't surpass intelligence," he replied. "I just didn't fear failure." For a moment, the room fell silent again. Varek's eyes flickered. That line struck something deep in him. The counselors looked uneasy, as if his words carried more truth than logic could accept. The reptilian elder slammed his hand on the table. "Do not mock this council, human," he growled. Ryan didn't flinch. "I'm not mocking you, sir," he said calmly. "But maybe your tests measure obedience, not creativity." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Commander Varek closed his eyes, half expecting the council to erupt in fury. But instead, silence followed. Heavy, long, and powerful. The counselors stared at the human who dared to challenge their system. Ryan stood still, his posture firm, his voice steady. "Humans don't win because we're the smartest," he said. "We win because we adapt, we learn from chaos, and we never stop trying." The words hung in the air like fire. Varek could see something changing in the eyes of the council. Curiosity replacing arrogance. The Zelari woman leaned back, whispering softly. "Perhaps that is why they survive so well." The elder glared at her, unwilling to show weakness. "This conversation is over," he snapped. "We will analyze the human's data further." Guards approached, signaling for Ryan to leave. He turned once more to face the council. "You can analyze numbers all you want," he said, "but you'll never understand humans by studying data." He walked out slowly, his boots echoing through the marble floor. Commander Varek watched him go, his heart conflicted. Admiration and disbelief mixed like storm clouds in his chest. Outside the chamber, the cadets gathered again. When Ryan appeared, silence fell across the courtyard. No one laughed this time, no one mocked. Even those who once ridiculed him now stepped aside. He had faced the galaxy's most powerful minds, and stood unshaken. As Ryan walked away, Commander Varek's voice echoed behind him, calm but firm. "Cadet Hale," he called. Ryan turned, his expression neutral. Varek nodded slowly. "You may be human, but today, you've shown the heart of a soldier." Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what makes us human," he said, and walked off into the glowing horizon. That night, reports from the council chamber spread through the academy networks. Alien worlds debated, questioned, and argued about the human cadet. Some called him a threat, others called him a miracle. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The council chamber's silence did not last long. Within hours, reports of the human cadets spread across the galactic network. Worlds that had ignored Earth's existence were now replaying the footage of Ryan Hale's tests. The words "human outperforms galactic elite" flashed across alien news streams. And within the academy, whispers turned into fear, curiosity, and awe. But the council wanted answers. They did not believe in miracles. So they ordered an investigation, not just into Ryan Hale, but into the human species itself. A team of scientists, telepaths, and memory analysts were summoned from distant systems. Their mission was simple: to prove that the human success was impossible without external interference. Ryan was escorted to the mind evaluation chamber. The room was circular, glowing softly with golden light. Strange machines floated around him, scanning every part of his body and brain. He stood quietly as telepaths entered his mind, searching for hidden implants or mental conditioning. Commander Varek stood behind the glass wall, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the human. He had requested to observe, not as a skeptic anymore, but as someone who needed to understand. Hours passed. The telepaths frowned, frustrated. They found no traces of manipulation, no sign of implants, no artificial enhancements. Ryan's brain waves were fast but natural, his thought process chaotic yet brilliant. When asked how he solved the tests, he simply said, "I saw patterns where others saw walls." The scientists exchanged glances, unsure whether to call it genius or madness. One telepath, a young Zelari researcher, looked startled during the scan. She pulled back suddenly, gasping. "I saw memories," she whispered. "Painful ones, endless struggle, hunger, fire, and hope." The lead investigator frowned. "Explain." The telepath trembled. "He doesn't think in logic. He thinks in emotion, survival, and adaptation. His mind isn't built to follow. It's built to resist." The counselors listening on the screen went silent, their expressions uneasy. Ryan remained calm, watching their reactions. Finally, one of the scientists asked, "How do humans learn so quickly? How do you adapt?" Ryan smiled faintly. "Because we've never had a choice," he said. He explained how humanity grew from chaos, from storms, wars, and endless challenges. Every failure forced humans to grow stronger. Every mistake became a lesson. "Your species evolved in comfort," he said softly. "Mine evolved in struggle." Commander Varek's jaw tightened. The truth of those words hit him deeply. He had always seen strength as control, discipline, perfection. But the human saw strength in imperfection, in chaos, in emotion. Varek whispered under his breath. "So that's why we couldn't understand you." When the results came in, they were undeniable. The human cadet had passed every scan, every check, every test. No cheating, no implants, no trickery. The report stated clearly, results authentic. Subject demonstrates unique adaptive intelligence unmatched by known species. The council members sat in stunned silence. For the first time in history, the word human appeared in the Galactic Intelligence Index, ranked above several advanced species. That night, the investigation files leaked to the Academy. Cadets read every line with disbelief. Some refused to accept it, some feared it, but many began to respect it. The same aliens who once mocked Ryan now studied his methods, trying to copy his thinking. He had changed not only their view of humanity, but their view of themselves. Commander Varek met him outside the chamber as the lights dimmed. He looked at Ryan for a long moment before speaking. "I spent years believing discipline was the highest form of strength," he said quietly. "But you've shown me something greater, willpower." Ryan smiled lightly. "Humans don't always win, Commander," he said. "We just never stop fighting." As Varek walked away, the stars shimmered through the glass dome above. He looked up and whispered to himself, "Maybe that's why they're dangerous." Across the galaxy, leaders debated how a single human could outthink the universe's best minds. And though the council tried to contain the truth, it was too late. Because by the end of the week, one message echoed through 1,000 systems. The human didn't cheat the test wasn't ready for the human. Days after the investigation ended, the Galactic Council reconvened. The results had shaken the entire network of worlds. Every major news channel replayed the same line. The human passed, without help. Alien scholars debated it, soldiers whispered it, and students in the academy couldn't stop talking about it. But in the council chamber, there was only tension. The counselors sat in silence, their glowing eyes reflecting uncertainty. For centuries, their system of intelligence had been the measure of all civilizations. Now, one human cadet had torn it apart with nothing but instinct and will. Commander Varek stood near the back of the room, arms folded. He had been invited not as an officer this time, but as a witness to something greater. Ryan Hale walked into the chamber, calm as ever. His uniform was plain, but the air around him carried weight, the kind of presence earned through quiet defiance. The lead counselor gestured to him. "Human, the galaxy wants answers," he said. "How did your kind achieve what logic says is impossible?" Ryan looked around the room, his eyes meeting those of beings far older and wiser than himself. "I didn't come here to prove humans are better," he said. "I came here to show that thinking differently is not a weakness." The counselors exchanged looks, unsure how to respond. Ryan continued, his voice steady but full of quiet fire. "Your academy trains perfection, but perfection dies when the rules change. Humans survive because we're never perfect. We're adaptable." The Zelari telepath leaned forward, intrigued. "Adaptable? Explain." Ryan smiled faintly. "When we fall, we learn. When we lose, we evolve. And when everything seems impossible, we still try again." He stepped closer to the council platform. "You've all built systems that avoid failure, but humans, we were born in it, molded by it. We don't fear chaos, we use it." The reptilian elder growled. "So you're saying chaos is your strength?" Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes, because chaos teaches what order hides." He looked around the room again, his voice now carrying through the hall. "You built your civilizations to remove pain, fear, and conflict, but those are the things that made us human." He paused, letting the silence settle. "When you take away struggle, you take away growth." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the usually cold Commander Varek felt something stir in his chest, a rare sense of respect. The counselors looked at each other, their expressions mixed between disbelief and fascination. One whispered, "They learn through pain. That's illogical." Another replied softly, "And yet, it works." Ryan stepped back. "We don't seek to dominate the galaxy," he said. "We just want to belong, to prove that humanity isn't small, just different." The council room dimmed as the holographic projection of Earth appeared in the center. A small blue world floating among billions of stars. Ryan looked up at it, his tone soft but proud. "From that tiny world, we reached here, not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to stop climbing." Commander Varek finally stepped forward, breaking the silence. "Counselors," he said, his voice deep and clear. "I've served for 40 years. I've seen the greatest minds fall before this test, and yet this human succeeded." He looked at Ryan, then at the council. "If this is not intelligence, then perhaps our definition of it is wrong." The room fell into stunned quiet. The Council of Worlds, rulers of thousands of civilizations, had just been challenged, not by a conqueror, but by a single human cadet. Ryan bowed his head slightly. "Maybe your test was never meant to measure intelligence," he said. "Maybe it was meant to reveal spirit." As he turned to leave, one of the counselors called out, "Cadet Hale, what drives humans to keep going when everything says stop?" Ryan smiled over his shoulder. "Hope," he said simply, "and the belief that tomorrow can still be better." The doors closed behind him, and for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was silent. Not from arrogance, but from realization. Outside, as Ryan stepped into the Academy courtyard, he looked up at the night sky. Stars glittered above him, endless, vast, and unknowable. And somewhere among them, humanity had just found its place, not as conquerors, but as survivors who refused to yield. Weeks passed since Ryan Hale's revelation shook the Galactic Council, but its echo did not fade. It spread, from the polished halls of the Academy to the farthest colonies among the stars. Every news channel, every holonetwork, every academy on every world began asking the same question. Who are the humans, and what else can they do? The once forgotten blue planet, Earth, suddenly became a symbol of mystery and resilience. Alien scholars debated human evolution, scientists dissected Earth's history, and military strategists whispered nervously about what might happen if humanity ever decided to expand beyond its system. What began as curiosity soon became respect and fear. At the Galactic Combat Academy, things began to change. The old ways of teaching were being rewritten. New courses were introduced, ones that didn't just measure logic, but creativity, instinct, and adaptability. They called it the human method, a training style inspired by Ryan Hale. Commander Varek himself oversaw the first group of cadets to study under this system. And at the top of every manual, in bold glowing letters, it read, "Perfection is not the goal, progress is." Ryan became a quiet legend within the academy walls. He never sought fame, never boasted, never tried to prove he was better. He taught by example, humble, curious, and determined. Alien cadets who once mocked him now approached him with respect, asking to train with him. He helped them not by giving answers, but by teaching them how to question. "Don't fear the unknown," he would say softly. "That's where you'll find who you really are." One day, during graduation, Commander Varek stood before thousands of cadets from across the galaxy. For the first time in the Academy's long history, a human flag hung beside the banners of alien empires. When Ryan stepped onto the stage, the crowd rose in silence, not from protocol, but from admiration. Varek spoke slowly, his deep voice carrying through the hall. "Cadet Ryan Hale did not come here to defeat us," he said. "He came to remind us what it means to try." The crowd bowed their heads, their respect crossing every boundary of species and origin. Later that night, Ryan stood alone on the Academy balcony, looking up at the stars. The twin moons shone bright over the Silver City. He thought about Earth, about the little blue world that nobody had believed in. Now, its name was known among the stars. He whispered quietly, "We finally made it." Behind him, Commander Varek approached, his steps slow and steady. "You've changed more than you know, human," he said, his tone softer than ever before. Ryan smiled faintly. "I didn't change the galaxy, Commander. I just reminded it that everyone has potential." Varek nodded, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Maybe so," he said, "but you made us all believe again." Soon after, the Council officially recognized Earth as a rising member of the Galactic Alliance. It was the first time in history that an emerging species had been welcomed through merit, not diplomacy. Ryan Hale's name was etched into the Hall of Honor, under the title, "The Human Who Solved the Impossible." Students would visit that name for generations, some to admire, others to understand. But all would remember the day the galaxy realized what humans truly were. Years later, stories about Ryan Hale spread like myths. They called him the unpredictable mind, the human anomaly, the thinker of chaos. Yet those who knew him best remembered him simply as a man who never gave up. The Academy continued his teachings, every new cadet hearing his name during their first lesson. "Never underestimate a human," Commander Varek would say, smiling proudly. "Because humans don't see limits, they see possibilities." And somewhere far beyond the Academy, on a quiet night under Earth's sky, a young child looked up at the stars, dreaming of joining the Galactic Academy one day. The legacy of Ryan Hale lived on, not in power or fear, but in inspiration. Because he hadn't just passed a test, he had awakened the galaxy. And from that day forward, every species that looked toward Earth understood one simple truth. The universe would never again doubt humanity.